Hi there, I'm Chris Cillizza of the Washington Post. Joining me today to answer 5 questions, of which I have not informed him what they are is Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. Mayor, thank you for taking time. Let's start with...
Why haven't you informed me?
Yeah, well, you know, I call it journalism. Let's start with the fact that you are the Democratic mayor of Los Angeles, and here you are in Tampa, Florida at the Republican National Convention. It provokes the question why. That is question 1.
Because this election is important, because elections matter, and what happens, who's in the White House, who's in the Congress really matters to LA. I can tell you, I've visited Washington some 17 times, got America Fast Forward passed in the surface transportation bill. When I meet with the White House to work on the issue of jobs, when I meet with congressional Democrats on the issue of transportation, I've not just got a listening ear, I've got people who want to work with cities. So it matters to LA what happens in this election in November.
Question 2 is, do you really believe that under a Romney administration, you as the mayor of one of the largest cities in the country, that you would have a fundamentally different relationship, and that it would be fundamentally worse for the city of Los Angeles if Mitt Romney is president, not Barack Obama?
The answer is yes, and I'll tell you why. I was mayor during the Bush administration. I was never invited to, nor went to the White House once. I would have gone. I reached out to that White House. I did work with some secretaries, there's no question about that, particularly Secretary Chertoff, Secretary Peters. But mostly we got a no. As soon as the president was elected, he put me on his economic transition team. We worked together on a number of issues: infrastructure, education, race to the top. So there's been a fundamentally different attitude and relationship, and the same was true when Speaker Pelosi was elected Speaker and Majority Leader Reid. There's just a fundamentally different relationship with cities like mine.
Now, we've talked about this before. The idea that mayors. This is the third question. Mayors have to get things done. I mean, you're an executive, and you and I have talked about this idea that politics, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, from the outside perspective, it appears to be broken. Barack Obama was.
Let me correct that. Not only from the outside perspective, it's broken. The level of partisanship, the level of vitriol, the lack of relationships, the allegiance to orthodoxy exists in both parties. No question about
given that, and this is question number 3.
It's more broken on the right than it is in our party.
But Barack Obama was elected under the direct idea that he was someone with a unique background and a unique ability, as demonstrated through his work in the state legislature and before, to bring people who didn't think they could be brought together. The last 4 years, I think President Obama and his folks would acknowledge this, he has not been able to do that. Given that, the Romney argument is, okay, he didn't do it, give us a chance to do it. Why is that not right?
This, without question, is the most partisan time that I can remember. Some have said it's the most partisan time since the Civil War.
Right.
It's certainly the most partisan time in my lifetime. You know, when the leader of the Senate Republicans says that his #1 job is to defeat President Obama, when you see and hear some of the statements that they make, you know, when a congressman stands up. I didn't vote for President Bush, but I respected him, his office. I respected the office of the presidency. I mean, how many times have you seen them get up and scream at him and walk out and call him a liar, and in ways that, you know, the lack of civility that they've displayed and that exists in both parties. But I think against President Obama in a way that is very personal and very vitriolic. It's been a real impediment to his trying to reach out. He has tried to reach out again and again, and each time they just reject him.
Let me ask you about something I know is
This
dear.
is the fifth question?
This is four. This is four. Don't shortchange me.
I'm trying to get to the fifth question.
This is
that
four.
I don't know about.
This is an issue obviously near and dear to you, and that you speak on regularly, which is the Hispanic community and the two parties' relationship with it. I've written many times that it's not a secret. John McCain got 31% of the Hispanic vote in 2008. That is a non-sustainable national party number as the Hispanic community grows. Is there, in your mind, is the Hispanic community nationally up for grabs between the two parties, or is this broadly? And I know there are a number of iterations of the Hispanic community in terms of ethnicities, but or is this broadly? Should we be thinking this as a Democratic constituency at this point?
Well, the Latino community is not a monolithic community any more than the European community is, or any other community. They don't just care about immigration. They care about a broad cross-section of issues. I'm native born. My grandpa got here 100 years ago. I care about a lot of issues, and I've always said the Latino agenda is the American agenda. It's the agenda of the dream. You know, I want my kids to have a better life. I want them to do well by their community, their family, their country. I want to be able to buy a piece of the rock and have a home and work hard and play by the rules and be rewarded for it. So I'd say that they're not a Democratic constituency, but I do think they'll vote overwhelmingly for President Obama, somewhere close to 70%.
Which is a big margin.
Well, I just don't see how, with the kind of rhetoric you saw during the primary, Governor Romney could have had a McCain moment when candidate Kane talked about electrifying the fence. He could have gotten up and said, hold it, I want to secure this borders. I want tough border security. But we're not doing that in the country I love. So the rhetoric, the extreme positions, the self-deportation of 11 million people, who's done that? What country in the world has ever deported 11 million people?
I had to look it up when he said it in the debate, I will tell you that.
They have 5 million citizen children. Saying that the DREAM Act is a handout, actually it's a hand up, and it's a contribution, a $1.5 trillion contribution to the U.S. economy. So I think because of this, the rhetoric, the extreme nature, first of all, Mexicans and Latinos are not the only undocumented. Any intelligent person knows that. All you hear them talk about is the Mexican border. There's a vitriol with their policies and their rhetoric that I think turns off even people who aren't that interested in immigration.
I mean, we'll see, but they cannot sustain losing 70-30 given the growth of the Hispanic community. The final question, I'm bringing it all back home.
There's a fifth question
to Antonio Villaraigosa.
That I don't know about, by the way.
The fifth question is, you are term limited out of the mayorship in next July. You are someone who has been very active nationally. What does the future hold?
Well, I'd like to say that if I was a Texan, I'd have a 10-gallon hat, and I'd be on a Palomino, and I'd be riding in the sunset. Because that's what I think I'm going to do, and that's what I think I should do. I've been acting on the world. I've been in the elected office. I was majority whip 3 weeks after I got elected, majority leader 2 years later, Speaker of the Assembly 3 years after I got elected to the Assembly. I've been a council member, and now 7 years as mayor. I'm going to focus on this job until the end because I want to ride out in the sunset with a big smile on my face and say adios. But I also think it's time to reflect a bit. I read a lot, but not a lot of big thinkers because I'm working on, trying to fix the city. And so I'd like to be around big thinkers, maybe a think tank, a university. I'd like to read and write, speak, and kind of think through how we fix this broken system. Nationally, in my great state of California, but also locally. I mean, I think there are things that we're going to have to do, investments that we're going to have to make. And I really do believe that President Obama is proposing a path that does that. We've got to cut. I'm cutting pensions. I've cut a third of the LA General Fund civilian workforce. You know, we're making tough decisions, but you also got to make investments that pay dividends down the end. Education is one of those investments. Infrastructure investment. Our roads, our highways, our bridges, our airports and our ports are deteriorating. So I want to think through with kind of big people, how we kind of find that common ground, that middle ground, to kind of move the country forward.
Antonio Villaraigosa, Mayor, soon to be big thinker. Thank you, sir.